Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. It's our first episode with a non-Newcastle Jets player, and I'm excited to announce we will be joined by Kusini Yengi. Kusini, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Firstly, obviously to the most recent memories, the game last night against the Victory, you've secured your place in the finals. Not only how are you enjoying Western Sydney, but how good is it to be in the finals again?
Yeah, it's great. I'm very proud, and I think we've done really well this season to qualify for the finals after, not sure how many years it's been since Wanderers haven't been there, but it's been a while. Personally, I played in the finals last year, so I kind of know what it's about, and I'm looking forward to it this year with Wanderers. But yeah, it's a new experience here. With Wanderers, I'm playing in a different position.
Yeah.
I normally play as a striker. Well, my whole career I did as Adelaide, and now I've only been playing as a left winger, so it's a bit different. I'm doing a lot more running, scoring less goals. So yeah, it's a new challenge, and I'm enjoying it.
Now to, I guess, growing up, did you always want to become a footballer, and were there any other sports you were into growing up?
Yeah, I think when I was a young kid, I just loved playing sport or just being outside. I wasn't really spending too much time inside. My parents didn't like me being inside, and I have a younger brother, Tede, who you know, so we were quite close in age, so we were always mucking around and stuff with each other outside and playing sports. I did a lot of athletics and stuff like that, but football was something that came to me quite late. So I think while I was growing up, I never really had this picture in my head of me being a professional footballer or anything like that. I kind of magically found my way into playing football, and then once I started playing for a year or two and I got pretty good at it, then I started to think, oh, maybe I want to take this to the next step and become professional.
And I'm glad you mentioned Tede, because that was actually my next question. Obviously, you guys don't see much of each other now, but how much of an impact has he had on your football career?
Yeah, I think, we've both had massive impacts on each other. I think being so close in age helped us a lot when we were younger, when we both got into football and we were, wanting to train together. We were pretty similar age, and we both had real big dedication towards football. So we used to go to the park and train each other, and him being so close in age, we were quite competitive, the physical aspect and everything. We would be able to compete with each other quite well. So for sure, he pushed me a lot, because he always wanted to beat me being the older brother. So I had to make sure I was always working hard and stuff like that, and vice versa. So yeah, he's had a great impact. Now that we're both professionals, we keep in contact a lot, even though he's overseas. I speak to him nearly every day. We're always talking about football and stuff like that. So yeah.
And obviously, you joined Adelaide United a few years ago, your debut for the Wanderers. But talk to me a little bit about that step up from the NPL and how big it is, footballing wise.
Yeah, it is a big step. For me, I kind of had like a bit of a smooth transition because I started off playing NPL at like a local club.
Yeah.
And then I moved from a local club, which was Adelaide Comets, to Adelaide United, and I played in the youth team. So I was playing in the NPL still as a youth team player at Adelaide United, and then gradually I made the next step into getting a bit of training time with the A-League team, and then after that I played with the A-League team. So it wasn't like I jumped straight from playing NPL to playing A-League. There was a transition period which helped me a lot, I think.
And obviously, we're seeing at Adelaide United now a good young crop players coming through the system. You had a lot of friends in the team, such as the Toure brothers, Pacific Nungabire. I can't pronounce that right.
No, that's
But
correct.
Was it easier having them, out there playing with your best mates?
Yeah, for sure. I think especially the Toure brothers, we grew up together. So I've known them since I first started playing football. They played with my little brother at NPL level for a junior club. So on the weekends and stuff like that, before we even played at Adelaide United, they would come over to our house and sleep over, and we'd go to the park and play and stuff like that. So then once we all made it and we were all playing professionally, especially in the youth team as well, those were some of my most enjoyable times playing football. I think that's when you enjoy it the most, when you're playing with your friends. So yeah, we had a great youth team at Adelaide that had me, Pacific, Alassane, all of these guys. We all grew up together and we were all playing in the same team, and we used to love training together and we used to love playing together. It was so enjoyable.
And you've had some great memories with the Reds, but if you had to pick your favourite memory with Adelaide, what would you say it would be?
My favourite memory at Adelaide? All right, there's been a few. I think probably I'd have to say my first goal. my first goal with the club, it was a great moment for me because especially it came against Victory, who were big rivals. And it was a time in my footballing career where I was having a bit of trouble because of I was struggling to get minutes, and I'd come off a couple of injuries and stuff like that. So it was a bit of a difficult time. And then finally scoring that first goal, kind of felt like I relieved a lot of pressure, and I'd got that first goal. And then from that, a few weeks on, I kept on scoring, and it was a really good time. So I think when I look back at my time at Adelaide, those were probably some of the most memorable times, in that goal especially.
And obviously playing with the Reds under Carl Viet, who was obviously a striker, obviously with Marco Rudan now, but to Carl Viet, how much of an impact has he also had on your football? Because it must be good also having a striker as your coach.
Yeah, for sure. Out of all the managers I've had so far, I'd say Carl for sure has had the most, effect on my career. I've known Carl for ages. When I played in NTC, when I played in the youth team, he was my coach. So Carl's known me since I was like 14 years old. Then he ended up being my assistant coach first, and then my head coach. So yeah, him being a striker as well, he used to give me lots of little tips and stuff like that. And I think he really helped me to just be the footballer that I am today, and to express myself on the field. And that's why I had such a great time at Adelaide.
And obviously you went away with Australia for the AFC Asian Cup. Describe that experience for you, obviously with a lot of great players as well.
Yeah, it was a great experience. It was one that came in a bit of a weird, strange time as well, as I was coming off a long-term injury at Adelaide, and we were in the finals, and I just played a few games, and then it was kind of a weird situation because kind of with my contract running out and stuff, I wasn't sure where I was going to play next year and stuff like that. And yeah, it was in Uzbekistan, which was a great experience. The weather was ridiculously hot, but it was my first time representing Australia. And there was a few boys in the team that I'd known, but there was players that I'd known from playing around the league, so it was a good experience. When you play at club, you're playing with like kids from all different age groups and stuff like that. And when you go play for junior national teams and stuff, everyone's like on the same age level. So it was the first time I'd played with kids that were around my age for quite some time. So yeah, it was a great experience. There was lots of great players there. And some of them are going on this season, especially in the A-League and stuff, like Jordan Boss and stuff like that. Joe Gorsey that was with me there to do crazy things this year. And yeah, it was an amazing experience.
And now to the Wanderers, you signed there this year. How did the move to join Western Sydney come about?
It was a bit of a difficult decision that I had to make at the end of last year. Coming off an injury and wanting to go overseas. But in the end of the day, I decided that I was going to stay in the A-League for one more year, hopefully. Marco had been calling me for quite some time, and he really wanted me to play in his team, and he had all these philosophies and ideas of how he wanted the team to play and how he wanted to bring Western Sydney back to the top where they were when they used to dominate. And that was something that really excited me, and I was looking forward to a new opportunity. I was looking forward to a new challenge, and my career so far, I'm from Adelaide, so I'd done everything in Adelaide. I was still living with my mum when I was back home at Adelaide, and I thought this would be a good step to take me out of my comfort zone and prepare me for hopefully a career overseas in Europe. I'd be able to learn a lot of things like cooking for myself, spending time by myself, being alone, being away from my family. So I decided to use this challenge as, a learning for something that's going to come in the future. I hope so.
And I'm not sure if you know, but all your last 5 games have been 7:45 night games. Do you prefer night or daytime games?
100%, I prefer the night games. We've had a lot of 3 p.m. kickoffs at the start of the year, and I don't really enjoy playing them at all. It's quite hot, especially here in Australia, and it's dry heat, and when you're running a lot and stuff like that, then your touch becomes a bit not so good, and then everyone's tired, so no one's really pressing. And then from a spectator's point of view as well, when I watch the games at 3 p.m, there always seems to be a little bit of a drop in quality.
Yeah.
I prefer playing at night. It's so much more enjoyable. I feel like I just feel more energized when I play at night. So yeah, I enjoy the 7:45 for sure.
And I wanted to touch on the RBB because you've come from Adelaide, and not to say Adelaide active support wasn't very good, but it's a bit of a step up with the RBB. So how have you enjoyed them in the crowd this season?
Oh, they're amazing. For sure, it's a bit different type of atmosphere when it comes to the active support compared to Adelaide. Every week they're there, you know, even when we play within other teams within New South Wales, like when we go to a MacArthur away, there's heaps of them there supporting, you know, people with their tops off, banging drums and chanting the whole game. You know, it definitely has an impact on us players for sure. You know, when you hear people like chanting and stuff like that in the crowd, it gives you a bit more energy, you know. When you're running through on goal and you hear everyone like screaming and shouting, you get a bit of burst of speed and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's been great, especially in the Sydney Derby as well, you know. There's a lot of them at our home games and stuff like that, but when it comes to Sydney derbies, everyone piles in, so it creates a different atmosphere that's just incredible to play in.
There was heaps of fan questions for you for the Sydney Derby, which we'll get into a little bit later. But firstly, I think it was the first game of the season against the Glory, and your dad come to watch you. Was it the first time in Australia? How good was it to have him there that day?
Yeah, it was great. It was the first time that he's watched me once before play when I was younger at Adelaide. So my father moved. He was here with me in Australia, and in 2008 he moved back to South Sudan, and he's been there ever since. So he hadn't really seen me play much football at all because he'd been over there, and I wasn't playing football when he left. So it was the first time he's watched me professionally, and it was really cool. It was really cool to have him in the stands. My mum was there as well. It was great, and he knew I played football, and he knew he played football professionally, but he didn't really, you know, understand the concept of how it was, and we were playing in big stadiums with fans and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a great experience for him. I'm sure he enjoyed it as well.
Now to, I guess, some more general questions. What hobbies do you sort of have away from football?
To be honest, when I'm here in Sydney, what I do on a day-to-day is a lot different to what I used to do in Adelaide, because, you know, I'm quite isolated here. I don't really have too many friends apart from my teammates and stuff like that. So I spend quite a bit of time at home. I don't really go out of the house too much. I have PlayStation, so I love playing PlayStation with my mates. I play FIFA a little bit sometimes, Call of Duty and things like that. Occasionally I read here and there. I like watching YouTube and Netflix and stuff, kind of things that normal kids do, I guess. But yeah, when I was in Adelaide, I used to go out a lot more, like to coffee shops and stuff with my teammates and stuff like that, to festivals and things like that. But now that I'm here kind of by myself, I tend to not do that too much.
And obviously, what would you say, do you get up to the beach many times here in Sydney? Because it's different from Adelaide from what I've heard. How do you enjoy the beaches here compared to Adelaide?
It's another weird one, because when I was in Adelaide, I lived 2 minutes from the beach, so I was almost at the beach every single day, and I have a dog, so me and the mum would take the dog for walks and stuff like that nearly every day at the beach, and I enjoy the beach so much that kind of feels like home to me. Yeah. And here, obviously, Western Sydney, based in the west, so when I was deciding where I was going to live, I really wanted to live close to the beach, but then I was going to have to drive so far to get to training. So now I live in Parramatta, which is about an hour away from the beach, so I don't really get to the beach too much. Especially with the schedule, we don't really have too many days off, but when we do, I try to head down to the beach, and, you know, it's a place where I feel at home. I feel calm, you know, hearing the waves crashing and stuff like that, and I enjoy being in the water and stuff like that. So I love the beaches here in Sydney. When I've been to the beaches, they're great. They're very different, like you said, to Adelaide. Adelaide has like a really long shore. There's not much waves and stuff like that, where in Sydney every beach is like kind of enclosed in a little cove, and there's lots of waves, and there's a lot more people at the beaches here. So yeah, I enjoy the beaches here.
Before we get into the fan questions, there's something that I had to bring up. You meeting Cristiano Ronaldo. I've heard a little bit about it from the Pitch podcast with Jared Walsh, but could you go through that again, how you met Ronaldo?
Yeah, so in about 2011 or 2012, I had a stepfather that came into my life, and he's Portuguese. His name was Emmanuel Pace. So I think it was around 2014 or something like that. We flew over to Portugal to visit his family. His aunties and uncles, and his mum lives over there. And Portugal national team happened to be training and playing at that period of time. So he did a bit of research about where they were training and whatnot. And then we ended up, it was really far from where we were staying. So we caught a train. We got up really early and went all the way out to this country town where Portugal were training, because they wanted to be secluded, I guess, from everyone. And he had the idea of us going early to the training session, and potentially meeting some of the players, you know, in the hotel and stuff like that when players are coming out. So that's what we did. and we went to the hotel where they were staying, and we just waited in the lobby. And I remember as soon as we walked into the lobby, Nanny and someone else were just sitting having a coffee like in the lobby, and there was no one in the lobby at all. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, the whole national team just started walking down to get onto the bus to go to their training ground. And there was no one really in the lobby at all, except for there was some like people who were there with their golf carts and golf gear and stuff like that. But I guess they didn't really know who any of these players were and stuff like that. So yeah, I met the whole national team, and I think Ronaldo was one of the last guys to walk down. So I had an Ozil jersey. I didn't really have any Real Madrid jerseys back then, and he signed it, but the jersey was black and the marker was black, so you can't really see the signature that well. So I still have it at home, but yeah, it was a great experience. I don't really remember too much of it, if I'm being honest. I don't really remember what I said to him or how the interaction went at all. When people always ask me about it, and I really can't remember. All I remember is taking a photo with him, and like I remember putting my hand on his back, and I remember I just felt like he had no fat on him at all. I was just feeling like muscles with my hand and stuff like that. That's probably the most I could tell you about that experience. But yeah, it was a great experience. And then we went to watch the training session after, and it turned out it was a closed session, so we weren't able to watch. So it was just great luck that we went early to the hotel and got to meet them. Otherwise we would have gone all that way for nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was great.
Now let's get into the fan questions, if that's
Sure.
all right with you.
Sure.
Plenty of people love to follow you. So firstly, Grant.amp, what's it like playing in a Sydney derby, and do you get nervous before the match?
Playing in a Sydney derby is an amazing experience. I think my first Sydney derby was this year at the start of the year, and it was even a bigger occasion because it was all the stuff with Milos Ninkovic. It was his first time going back to play Sydney FC, so there was these big tifos and the stadium was almost sold out. So, you know, it was something that I hadn't experienced before. I think the amount of people who were there, that's the biggest crowd I played in front of. So, yeah, it was a great experience, and it's just different, you know, the atmosphere and the rivalry. Yeah, it was great.
And you had your two mates, Tete and Anthony,
Yep.
in the first game.
Yep.
First. How good was it having them there experience that? And you obviously ran to the RBB when you scored as well.
Yeah, it was crazy. I think it just happened to work out. I can't remember. I think it was around Christmas time or just that. So Tete had just had some time off. He'd just come back from Finland, so I told him that the Sydney Derby was on and he should come to Sydney. So he came here and stayed with me for a week, and then Anthony came up as well. And yeah, it was a great experience. They both said that it was one of their top experiences they've had in their life. I think that game was just a bit different because there was a lot of tension building. You know, it was 0-0 until I scored, and I think it was around the 79th minute or something like that. So yeah, it was a crazy moment. When I scored that goal, you just get a rush of adrenaline, and you know, I didn't have any celebration planned or anything like that, and I just saw the RBB guys there, and I just ran, and you know, my body just took over. It was a great experience.
And how good is it having, you know, most of the stadium, obviously it was Sydney FC home game, but seeing lots of Wanderers fans at the game?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like a Sydney FC home game, but I reckon the fans were split almost like half-half,
Yeah.
which isn't normal. So yeah, it was crazy. The Wanderers fans were definitely louder than the Sydney fans. All I could hear was Wanderers fans. So yeah, it was a great experience. I think just before you asked me, do I get nervous before the games? Sometimes I think you get a little bit of good nerves. I think sometimes if I'm like sitting at home or the coach is doing the team talk and he's talking about this and that, then in those moments sometimes you get a little bit nervous. But as soon as I walk out and onto the field and I'm kicking the ball around and stuff like that, you kind of forget everything.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of focused on what you're doing. And you know, there's so many people like yelling out at you and stuff like that, but for some reason when you're in that moment, you know, you just go into this little bubble and you kind of don't really hear anything else that's going on. So yeah, sometimes I get a little bit nervous, but most of the time, as soon as the game goes or the whistle goes, you know, you feel really good.
We have a question here from S1MBA_Rover. What's one thing you want to accomplish in your football career?
One thing I want to accomplish in my football career, I'd love to win the A-League this year with Wanderers. No Wanderers team before has won the grand final, so that'd be the first ever. So that'd be a great achievement. There's so many things that I want to tick off. You know, I'm 24 now, so I'm getting I'm not that young anymore, but in terms of football, I've had lots of injuries and stuff like that. So the amount of games and stuff I have played is very little. So I'm quite young in that regard. So there's a lot of things I want to achieve. Playing for the Socceroos is one thing that I'd love to achieve in the near future. I think if I keep working hard and scoring goals and doing well, there's no way that I won't achieve that.
Before I get into the last fan question, I forgot to ask earlier. I understand you went on surgery with Adelaide. How did you deal with those sort of setbacks and injuries, and was it hard coming back to football after the injury?
Yeah, I think for sure. Injuries are not a fun part of football. And in my time in Adelaide, there was that many different little kind of injuries and stuff that I had that stopped me from playing. So, they were really difficult times for me and hard to deal with because, what you want to be doing is being out on the football field, playing with your mates and stuff like that. And when you're injured and you're in the gym and you're watching everyone else outside training and stuff like that, it's not fun at all. So, I had like 2 or 3 surgeries while I was at Adelaide. The most recent one being like a real big one up in my hip. And, that was very upsetting for me because I was good all pre-season and I had a really good pre-season and I was coming in I was going to be the starting number 9. I played the first 3 games of the season. I scored a goal, got an assist. So we were doing really well, and I was looking forward to playing that season and having a real good year, and then hopefully going over to Europe or something like that. And then to have that injury was a big setback. So yeah, it is quite difficult to deal with those moments. But I was fortunate that I had good people around me. I had my mum, I had my brother, and people that comforted me and looked after me. And then I had real good people at Adelaide physios and stuff like that who were excited and, got me motivated to, get back in the gym and work hard so that I could come back and be a better player than I was before. So I think having that balance of people that, can look after you and comfort you as well as other people that are going to motivate you and push you to, work harder and get back on the field is very important. So, yeah.
The last question, there was actually heaps of questions just saying, not even questions, just saying how did it feel to score against Wanderers? Should Sydney change their name to Yengi's Playground? But there's a question here from Isaac Simmons. What's your favourite moment from this season?
My favourite moment from this season, I would say for sure probably had to be the Sydney derby, the first one, scoring the winning goal, scoring the only goal of the game. It was my first goal for Wanderers, and it was a long time coming. It'd been like, I don't know what round that was, but I hadn't scored in any of the first rounds. So it was a bit of a difficult period, and that kind of like just relieved a lot of pressure and stress, I guess, in a way, scoring my first goal. And then in the Sydney derby, and it's something it's a goal that people will look back on for years to come, I'm sure, when they think of the Sydney derby and remember that goal. So there was a lot of adrenaline. I had my brother and one of my best friends in the stands as well, and just for how much it meant to Milosh as well, him with his whole situation with Sydney FC and stuff like that. It was a great moment.
Kusini, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. Thanks, guys, for sending in the questions, but thank you to you for joining me, and good luck for the rest of the season and heading into the finals.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you.